Good evening, and welcome to our April edition of Northwest City Politics. I'm your host, Eric Margolis. Today we'll be visiting with Hennepin County, one of our leaders there in our public safety and law enforcement. We're very excited that she has taken time to join us. So please welcome Hennepin County Sheriff Dawanna Witt to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're really excited to hear from you. It's been a tough time in Hennepin County in recent months. And there's a lot that we want to learn about the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office. But before we get into all of that, we'd really like to hear more about you and how you got into this line of work and how you got to be where you are.
Sure, thank you. So my name is Dawanna Witt, and I will tell you that I never saw myself in this line of work. As a person who grew up in South Minneapolis and being exposed to a lot of things such as violence and drug, alcohol addictions, abuse, we had a lot of law enforcement that was invited into our lives. And from an early age, I saw what bad policing looks like, and I know the effects of it. So with that being said, I was actually afraid of law enforcement. I didn't like them, didn't trust them, didn't feel safe around them. And so I wanted to ask, well, then how is it that you're in this spot now? One day I took a tour of the Hennepin County Jail, and the detention deputy that gave that tour talked about how they needed more women and people of color to work in the jail. And for me, that was different from what I seen in the community. It wasn't the same as being, say, a police officer. So I actually filled out an application. I became a detention deputy. And it was there where now I had to have conversations and interaction, communication with law enforcement, right? Because that was part of my job.
Yeah.
And it was through that, those interactions and those communications that I had to learn for myself that, wait a minute, they're not all the same. There are some really good people that do this type of work. My highlight went back off, or on, I should say, and I went back to school to become a licensed peace officer. In 2004, I was hired by the Dakota County Sheriff's Office, and I worked various positions such as a school resource officer, detective. I was a SWAT negotiator, went up the ranks there, ultimately becoming the first woman to ever reach the rank of captain at that agency. And then in 2019, I was asked to come back to Hennepin County in a position of a major, and I oversaw our largest bureau, which was jail and courts. And in 2019, I should say 2020, lots of things were going on. We had the pandemic, we had the murder of George Floyd, and all the unrest. And I would say that's probably the first time in my career where I really felt like, oh my goodness, did I choose the right path, right? And, I was challenged quite a bit. But through all of that, made it through it, collaborated with people, never forgot about the very community that I grew up in and understanding the anger and the pain that was going on. I tried to connect as much as I could with people. But one day I was in my office and minding my own business as I should be, and there was quite a few of the command staff that came in, and they said, you need to run for sheriff. And I told them, nope. And, but there was some convincing there, and then talking to my grandmother and my brother, I decided, okay, they believe in me, I'm gonna do this thing. I ran for sheriff in 2022, took office in 2023, and whoever thought that tour that I had 26 years ago would be a 26-year sentence in this profession.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Yes.
That's a big transition, right? And I kind of heard a little bit in the beginning of your story that you did have interactions with law enforcement at an early age, and
Yes.
probably some very difficult situations. But you didn't immediately want to be in law enforcement. There was this pivotal moment where you had this experience in the jail.
Yes.
And I think that's interesting because a lot of people, I think, don't understand all of the capabilities and responsibilities and directives that the sheriff's office, has. I think they immediately see, especially in recent times, the enforcement of laws, the more policing aspect. But really, there's a much more complex array of things that the office does, correct?
Yes, yes, there is, and we find ourselves explaining the similarities and the differences between a sheriff's office and a police department quite often. Some of the things that I educate people on is one, sheriff's office, not department, right? Because all sheriffs in Minnesota are elected, so it's the office of the sheriff. So I always tell people I got nearly 1.3 million bosses, whereas a chief might have 7 to 13. Not only that, but we all have to take the same education to become licensed peace officers in Minnesota. But then once you look at the stark differences about what our offices do, we can do everything that a police department does. However, the sheriff have mandates that police departments do not have. Some of those include running the jail, courts, civil service, water investigations. It doesn't matter if it's a swimming pool, a bathtub, a lake, or a river. Sheriff's office is mandated to do those type of investigations. And those are things that police departments do not have to do. When you think about permit to carry, so those are the sheriff's office. Where a police department, they do permit to purchase, but it's the sheriff's office that does the permits to carry.
All the investigations and backgrounds.
Yes, yes, all of them. So there are those additional mandates. And then the other thing is when you think about a city, they have that primary jurisdiction in their city. The sheriff has primary jurisdiction in the entire county. The overarching statutory mandate for the sheriff is to keep peace within the county.
And there's a lot of cities in the county, including the ones that are viewing this at home today, that are part of our Northwest City Cable Communications Commission, CCX Media.
Yes.
And some of those cities, they don't have their own police force because budgetary constraints are not big enough.
Yes.
So is that where the sheriff then comes into play?
Yeah, so if their city does not have it, that would be our primary patrol area as to include territories such as Fort Snelling. That's also the sheriff's office primary patrol area. So, there have been some cities too in the last few years where they've had critical staffing issues where we contracted and we were the primary source in those cities until their staffing got sufficient and things like that. Another way to think about it is even though there's a primary police department, the job of the sheriff is to make sure that we are there to provide the resources that they do not have and kind of supplement them and when there needs to be help, and that's something that we do very well in Hennepin County.
Right.
Me and all of the chiefs, we get along quite well. And we understand that there's no one department that can handle everything that's going on by itself. So we work very well together and count on each other for assistance.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that you mentioned Fort Snelling. I think because when people hear Fort Snelling, they immediately think, that's federal land. That's the federal government's responsibility. And of course, the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office in recent months, because of this administration's approach to our state and Operation Metro Search, has been very visible there. But maybe you can help us understand a little bit. When you say jurisdiction,
yes,
what does that really mean?
Well, specifically, let's talk about the Whipple building because that's been on a lot of people's minds and a lot of publicity lately. Yeah. The Whipple building is a part of that unincorporated territory, which has always been the primary jurisdiction of the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, just as Fort Snelling has been. And so, we had a lot of questions, well, why are we there? Well, it's because that is our statutory mandate. That's our primary patrol area, and so we must take care of it, enforce laws, our state laws and ordinances for that area.
Wow, okay, so that's why we see you there then, essentially like you would respond to any incident anywhere in the county or any call for assistance from any of the unincorporated areas of a resident or even another local agency. And it's just unfortunate that what was taking place was really not within the control or even as a result of anything that your office or Hennepin County or even Minnesota was doing.
Right.
And it's still ongoing, right?
It's still ongoing. We still have deputies that are, if not directly there on the property, they're in the vicinity of the area. I think that was one of the other teaching moments that we had to do. We're trying to do a lot of defining and less defending. But whenever there is an incident in our primary jurisdiction, our job is to uphold the law. And that's what we do. And I'm talking about the local laws, right? And some people didn't seem to understand that. You know, there were some things that were said, we're protecting the building or we're protecting federal agents. Well, you know what? At the end of the day, we in law enforcement, we are held to a higher standard, which we should be, and we do not get to choose who we will and will not protect.
Right.
Our job is to protect everyone despite race, gender, religion, profession. Our job is to keep the peace.
Equally. Protect
Equally.
all of them equally, even the people there
Yes.
who are protesting the fact that this is happening, that the enforcement is taking place, that Minnesota was targeted. And it's really fascinating if we look back even at your intro of your time and how, you know, the unrest that we experienced in Hennepin County after the murder of George Floyd. Always seems that these really big, almost generational defining moments keep happening here. Why do you think that is?
We're ground zero, that's for sure. You know, but if you look at the response, and again, somebody who actually grew up in Hennepin County, you know, I could tell you how different it was from the 70s all the way till today. We've always had strong communities, right? And that neighborly love. People call us Minnesota nice, even though I think it means something different nowadays.
Right. Yeah, I think it does.
But, you know, that's something that we've always been about, is taking care of one another. You know, even with the chaos and the bad things happen everywhere. It doesn't matter where it is. Bad things happen everywhere. But knowing that this state, our cities, Hennepin County, city of Minneapolis, with everything we've been through, we've also gotten stronger as we got through things. We had better understanding of things. You know, you see people that change their ideals or their responses, and that's because experiences change people. You know, we can't keep talking at people. We have to be willing to sit down and talk to people, not just like-minded people, but people who think differently. Because at the end of the day, we have to come together and work something out that's going to work for everyone. It doesn't mean we have to agree, but we do have to be the adults, and we have to figure this out and use those gifts that God gave us, communication, to do so. And to sit down and talk with someone doesn't mean that you agree all the time.
Right.
But at least you're trying to get a better understanding of where someone's coming from, and that's what we should be doing, and we should be setting those examples for our young people too.
Agreed, 100%. And that's why we're so excited that you're here, because this conversation, you know, lots of people will be able to see this. That's our hope. We'll share it far and wide. And I think it's important more than ever that there be more dialogue, because I think really the lack of that divides us even further, and that isn't going to help us recover. Really, that's what we need to do, right? We have to come together to recover from all of these events, and most recently, you know, the impact of Metro surge.
Yes.
And a lot of the trust that's been eroded between the people that live here and people in positions to, you know, to do very important things. Your office, the federal government, you can't answer for all of them, but I think sometimes, you know, it's important for people to understand, we live here too, you live here too. Your deputies live here also. And they also are impacted by this. So how are you and your department, how are you going to move forward to recover from the impacts of Metro?
Well, we very much know that we have a long road ahead of us. You know, the impact that it's had on local law enforcement just set us back 30, 40 years. You know, what we've seen from some of those federal agents and the way that they behave is not the way that we local jurisdictions behave. We do believe in accountability. We do not use tactics to the degree that they did, as fast as they did. And, you know, we do believe in following the rule of law. And you treat people with dignity and respect. And we know we've seen things out there where those things were not happening. And again, I can understand when you see and you experience something, how that can make a person stereotype a whole profession.
Right.
I completely understand that. And so the work we have in front of us now is how do we rebuild those relationships, and actually for some people build, because it was never there to begin with. And, but what happened because of the operation Metro Surge? It impacted everyone, and I think it's so important for people to realize that it didn't just impact the people who are not in law enforcement, but there are some good men and women that are doing this work in our communities, that are doing it for the right reasons. They are impacted too. They are people with those uniform and badges on. You know, as someone who knows absolutely what it feels like to be stereotyped, whether it's because of my gender or my race in this law, in this profession, it is a mistake to stereotype everyone.
Yeah.
We need to do better with holding individuals accountable for their actions and not pushing away the good people that are doing some of the most dangerous work.
Right.
They don't deserve the things that have happened, and I am talking about our local people, or the things that have been said to them and how they've been treated because of the profession that they are in.
Yeah.
And at the same time, again, like I said, I understand how people think that way because
Sure.
that used to be.
Was
But
your
what I'm
lived
saying is somebody
experience,
who's
too.
doing that,
Yeah.
who's done that, I'm going to tell you that we need good people in this profession. So let's not chase them away.
Yeah.
Let's have the conversations. I had a meeting today with some people from the community, and you know, we were talking about, you know, she asked at the towards the end of this discussion, what can we do to help? And I said, talk to your local agencies, talk to them and get to know them as people. We can't keep depending on social media or sending out a memo. We need human interaction.
Yep.
I mean, I think we've seen what happens when there's no human interaction, when like with COVID and all of that. You have to really have conversations with people. And to my elected official colleagues, you have to make the time to have those conversations for people, because when things go wrong, it's not if, we know things will go wrong. And there's going to be things that are put out there, whether on social media, the media, inside of different affinity groups. People could say, wait a minute, I know him or I know her, something's not right here. We have to make it more personable. We have to have those conversations with people.
That's an excellent point. You know, and I think social media and this particular content, I think we see a lot of interactions taking place where your deputies are responding or involved. But we don't get to see the full picture. We're just getting to see just that one moment.
Yes.
And in fact, I'm pretty sure that most people may have seen incidents that may have happened like in front of City Hall with people drawing replica weapons, you know, and out of vans and all of these things. And they don't understand what kind of response there should be. They may see some of your deputies in that 30 seconds or 1 minute of the video, but they never hear what happened. And in fact, your office was very much a part of making sure that those people were held accountable, right, and brought to justice.
Yes, we had an investigation of some bounty hunters that were pointing guns at people. That is not something that we would do.
Right.
It was not okay, and we did take both incidents and investigate it, and we submitted our findings to the county attorney for charging. And that's the way it should be. I also think, though, we need to bring attention to, there is this human need for, we need something right now.
Right.
In the real world, that's just simply not the way that it works. You know, we realize that there's video clips out there, but they start at a certain point. We have to ask what led up to that.
Before and after.
You have to have the whole story, you know? And so what I would say to people is, for the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, that we do review all use of force, or I like to call it response to resistance cases. And if there is something wrong there, they do get submitted to internal affairs. It is a process. And we get it. We as human beings, we need that immediate gratification.
Right.
But that's not how this works, because guess what? We're also fallible.
Right.
We get things wrong sometimes. So we owe it to people to make sure we do things the right way. It doesn't matter if it's a citizen or a person in law enforcement. Every incident deserves a thorough review.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I'm wanting you to share with people who are tuning in today and watching the show, is that very thorough, detailed, and methodical investigation took place, and that was missed. No one probably knows that.
Yeah.
You know, we read maybe that charges were filed, but we kind of skipped everything in between. In your office, your deputies were involved in making sure that that happened, and that's an important thing for people to know and to call out, because there's a lot of work that your office and your deputies perform and continue to perform during Operation Metro Surge. I mean, that you still had to run the jails and keep everyone safe. You still had to administer the courts and make sure that people are able to, participate in the justice system. You had to investigate, any other incidents that happen in patrol in these other areas. And on top of all of that, you inherited all of the feelings and the anger towards the uniform and the badge that was inflicted upon the people of Hennepin County and our state by this administration.
Right.
But I think it's important for people to hear about some of the things that your office was still doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, right? I tell people all the time that somewhere around the age 5, my magic wand broke. Yes, it would be simple if we could say, yes, pause life. But life keeps happening no matter what. While Operation Metro Surge had so much attention, so much negative attention, we kind of forgot, and I won't say we as the profession, but people kind of forgot that there were other people that were victimizing our communities. Our work was still very demanding in all other areas, and so we had to be very creative, one, to respond to the surge and respond to all of the criticisms, input that we were getting for that. But if I look at January 1 through August 15th, I'll just give you a few stats here of just our task forces. Seized 55 pounds of methamphetamine, 22 pounds of fentanyl powder, 74 illegal or illegally possessed guns were taken off of the streets. 173 vehicles were recovered. And then, as I talked about that mandate with civil process, we still had to serve papers.
Right.
We have small timelines. And then you think about violence, you think about domestic violence. We are the ones who are getting those DENCO orders out there and having to do that work. And this is why it's so important to make sure that our law enforcement agencies have sufficient people to do all this work, because we do not have the option of saying, well, you know what, it's 4 o'clock, so we'll see you tomorrow. We don't have the option of saying, well, you know what, we're almost at the top of our budget range. We'll have to wait till next fiscal period. The role of the sheriff's office, as well as our police departments, is to respond 24/7 to all of these things that are going on. And that's what I would say to the viewers. Remember, we still have people that are victimizing our communities, that are harming our children. We have to be able to respond to all of these things, because again, at the end of the day, we can't just say, sorry, we're at our wits' end. We can't do that.
Absolutely, and and we're actually very lucky that we have your office, and that every day you're working towards making sure that Hennepin County is, what do you say? Your mandate is to keep the peace, right?
Yes.
And to protect the people of Hennepin County, even when it may not be popular to do so. And that's an extremely admirable thing, which, if you haven't heard this, thank you for doing all of that work, and thank you for your office. I can't imagine that you would want to continue to do this work, but...
My husband said the same thing. I remember when I ran the first time. This is my first journey into office, right? Running for an elected position. It's a 4-year term. I'm running again this year, so yes, I am gonna take it on for another term.
Excellent.
Hopefully that Hennepin County voters are want me to stay in this position. But one of the questions that was asked of me when I ran the first time is, what are we missing in leadership? I seriously believe to run for an elected office, you have to have passion, you have to love what you do, you have to understand that it's not just about you, right? It's not just about my ideas. We need people who are community oriented, people who are willing to talk with like-minded people as well as not like-minded people. I like to consider myself as somebody who is truly trying to bridge that gap. Because again, I remember what it felt like to think that nobody wants to help you. Nobody is going to help you. That is a very lonely place to be. One of my biggest fears in this role is overlooking people that need to be seen or heard. And so you know, it's that passion. You know, again, my husband has said, it's like all those degrees you got, you can do whatever you want to do.
Right.
I truly believe that I am the right person for this job right now, because I still do have that passion, and something that I've just done since a child, you know, is I'm used to taking care of other people. Sometimes that means not taking care of myself as well as I should be, but that's just a part of who I am. And, you know, again, it's a hard job. It's a stressful job. I will never judge a job that I have never done again, because I thought I knew everything. But no, it is, every day I'm learning something. Every day I'm adjusting. And for my leadership role, I'm not afraid to be vulnerable with my staff or the community, because I think that's a big problem with this profession, is that we tell other people we are human beings behind the badge and the uniform, right? But we do a horrible job treating ourselves like that. We're fallible too. We make mistakes. Now we have to own them, and we have to make it better. And it's okay to tell people that. We are not perfect.
Yeah.
And so to be out there in the community and tell people that, you know, I'm a part of this community too, is very important. I remember somebody tried to mock me in the media, because I do talk about those things, wearing my heart on my sleeve, and they said, oh great, we got a heartfelt sheriff. And I'm like, you sure do.
Yeah.
You should want somebody who cares.
That's
Yes.
something that you should be proud of. And, you know, really in this discussion, and I know the viewers at home will also be able to benefit from this, is I want to thank you for coming and being vulnerable here in this space with us, and really, you know, speaking about why you want to continue this work, why this work is important. We can see it in your answers. We can see it in your actions. And, you know, in Hennepin County, we're very lucky to have someone like you in this very important role. And I'm, you know, happy to hear that you are seeking to, you know, continue that.
Yes.
And
Will you tell my husband that too?
I will.
Okay.
I'm sure he'll tune in and watch. And I did tell you that our time together would go by fast, and so now we're, you know, only have about a minute or so left of our show. But we would love to have you continue to come back and have these discussions, so that people at home who are watching, who tune in, can learn more about the office, can learn more about the work, and get to see, you know, more than just the blip on social media.
Yes.
About what is, you know, what is happening. So thank you so much again for being here today.
No, thank you. And if I have a minute to tell your viewers about 2 things that we have coming up that's very helpful to the community.
Sure.
This Saturday we have our drug take back. We will be at Maple Grove at the Sam's Club. Drug take back is about bringing your expired or unwanted medication from your home, so that we can safely dispose of it. You know, we advocate for people not to pour things down the drains in the sink. We don't need that in the water, but we'll be doing that from 10 to 2.
Okay.
And if people really want to know more about the Sheriff's Office and all of the things that we have going, we have an open house May 30th at our patrol building in Plymouth. And that's where we bring out all the toys and the whistles.
Great.
You can interact with our deputies and ask them about the specialized position. And that's what community is all about. So
Absolutely.
we hope that we get people to come and join us those days.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll love to be there, and I'm sure people will definitely make it a point. So we'll see you all next month. And thank you for tuning in. As always, be well.